Managing change shouldn't be so hard. Is there a new normal for the built environment? No one expects to go back to the old normal, and no one knows what the new normal is going to be like, other than it's going to be flexible and dynamic as we work out the future of our commercial built environment. We have learned that flexibility isn't just about linking a sensor with an air handling unit or some lights. It's about being able to tailor the building for new layouts and ever-changing levels of occupancy, but also maintaining optimum energy efficiency. It is also about enabling estates managers to help operational managers to change usage in sync with the business needs. This pandemic has woken us up to the multi-faceted nature of flexibility. If it wasn't designed into the building, how do you add it and mitigate against future risks? COVID has highlighted a different way of working. Working from home, once seen as a working environment for the few, is now more common than ever before. It may even be the new normal, with offices becoming the transient meeting places. The office space is changing. We were used to hot desking, but COVID has forced us to reassess shared space. That space has to be flexible, but also be able to be easily cleaned to keep it healthy. We are exploring the possibilities of contactless work environments. Social distancing has meant space is a premium. So how we manage those spaces, control them, and keep them healthy has to be reassessed. From planning and specification through to facilities management, the best use of this valuable commodity, workspace, is now a key issue in the built environment. COVID-19 is not the first virus to have an impact on the human population, nor is it likely to be the last. So these lessons we learn are vital. Smarter building control is going to play a major part. An estates manager needs information about the installation they actually have. They must know how to tune its performance, keeping it efficient and flexible in an ever-changing environment. It will be critical to fill the information gaps for building managers, giving them that freedom to be flexible and to know exactly what is happening throughout the building. This will enable them to act on real-time knowledge and implement changes quickly. The specifications will start to reflect this need. This change needs to happen sooner rather than later. The industry must lead, not wait for government regulations. Building owners will rightly expect an open and collaborative approach from the controls industry to make this happen. What they may be surprised to learn is that it's been there for over 30 years with K&X. K&X is the common language of the controls world, and all the leading manufacturers offer compatible products. There is no need or excuse to be painted into proprietary corner. All K&X products are guaranteed to work together for the lifetime of any given system component, because backwards compatibility is built into the licensing agreement. The solution can be signposted by our industry. An obvious change is making buildings as contactless as possible. Whilst this is not difficult to achieve in larger open spaces, it is much more difficult in smaller offices or buildings whose usage naturally requires privacy. The first step to achieve contactless design is being able to determine when someone is entering or leaving a space. The K&X world now offers a perfect solution for this with sophisticated presence detectors. Integrated with motorized doors and intelligent lighting and HVAC, all speaking to each other via K&X, it would be simple to create a completely contactless environment as people move through a building and use its different spaces. There are camera sensors available that go a step further by keeping count of how many people are in a space in real time. It could be used to provide feedback to restrict access when an area is full, or in more normal times to increase the ventilation to ensure fresh, clean air is provided in more confined spaces when more people arrive. Let's take a look at an example of a meeting room. In a high rotation office space, a group of people have booked a meeting room. This booking was carried out remotely and logged onto the building system. When they enter the room, it has been brought up to temperature for them 10 minutes before the meeting is due to start. The lights turn on as they enter, dependent upon ambient light levels. They log in so their presence is recorded, and the system adjusts based on the number of people actually using the room, monitoring CO2, temperature, light, and shading. After the meeting, the absence of people in a room can be used to trigger the cleaning crew to enter and wipe down the surfaces, so making the transition to the next users less risky. This is truly effective real-time space management. Managing the air quality in the building is another area where building controls have a major role to play. This requires a shift in mindset from HVAC being as efficient as possible to it being able to perform at a level which maintains the highest levels of filtration and air changes, vital for a healthy working environment and to help control the spread of an airborne virus inside. But this transition will take time, and for this to work, a high level of control is needed over the air conditioning systems and a high level of integration with existing BMS systems. This is possible with overarching KNX control, using, for instance, gateways to BACnet, etc. Why KNX control? Because once you look beyond simply controlling the HVAC and you want to add the efficiency of integrated control of lighting, security, etc., KNX is the only contender. The organisation behind the leading technology standards in the field of building automation are working together to improve the integration of smart building products. The recently announced IP Building and Lighting Standards (IPBLIS) initiative is being driven by the KNX Association, BACnet International, OCF, Thread Group and the Zigbee Alliance. Together they are promoting a secure, multi-standard, IP-based infrastructure as a backbone in building automation to replace the inefficient, still widespread use of siloed solutions. The technologies from the various partners are already available on IP, so there is limitless scalability. This is a sure sign that the industry is leading the way. The ability for occupants to interact with a building will also need to change, particularly as our understanding of the steps we will need to make to remain safe becomes second nature. KNX enables systems integrators to determine where and at what levels of local control are enabled at any particular time. KNX offers a number of server-based solutions that provide wide visualization and control along with low-level control of individual rooms or functions. Servers play a central role in building management and its ability to limit access to certain users or user groups, and apps for mobile devices as well as desktop interfaces means it provides a comprehensive solution for both managing and controlling the installation, as well as maintaining COVID security. BYOD, bring your own device, will become more prevalent post-pandemic with all the cybersecurity implications that it brings. That's another reason to welcome the IPBLIS plans to create an application layer agnostic, secure IP connectivity to a building. So in conclusion, it's only when we treat whole buildings as a single environment that we can really achieve the level of control needed to meet evolving requirements of building design. Ideally, this should also be a system that can be adapted over time or even pivoted quickly to provide a completely different type of functionality. Open platform functionality removes the risk of hardware lock-in and leads to collaborative industry-led solutions that communicate freely. The holistic approach to control systems, with systems sharing a single secure infrastructure, ensures that available data from a sensor can be used across the system, regardless of the application. A KNX solution has always offered freedom, flexibility, and future-proofing. This not only applies during the COVID pandemic, but for all eventualities, now, previously, and in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Paul. Now, unfortunately, Paul wasn't able to join us for the questions this afternoon. However, I am delighted that I'm going to be joined by Mark Warburton, and he's a board member for KNX UK, and he will take this afternoon's questions. So welcome to Mark. So the first question we've got is really about the sort of when we have to think about the control aspects. So how important is it, Mark, to consider the control aspects at the design stage of a building?
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's one of the really big questions because it's so much easier when it's done early. The sooner you can start to think of the building control as a holistic solution in that design process, the better the outcomes are going to be. Even before or during the discussions with the M&E consultant, if you're able to set out a kind of plan from the beginning about the building being treated as this one single kind of ecosystem, one single environment, it means everything else gets a lot easier. If it gets to the M&E consultant and they immediately split it into the lighting or the electrical and the mechanical, we've already lost this opportunity to really integrate everything together. So the sooner the building is considered as this one environment, the better, really. It's so much harder to do it after that mechanical and electrical split, and it gets harder and harder as the building goes on. Once a building's complete, it can be a real challenge to try to integrate different things together, especially where we're looking at the difference between wired and wireless solutions. A wired solution is always so much more reliable, such a better way to go. And having to try and retrofit solutions, particularly now, as all of a sudden there's these changing requirements for how a building needs to work, it's a real challenge to do it because you're kind of going, well, we're stuck with this specific solution, the siloed solution or the single manufacturer solution. How do I make the building smart now? It's almost trying to teach an old dog new tricks, I guess, with how the building needs to now work. So as soon as possible, it really does make a big difference.
Okay, no, that's good. And a lot of the questions that we've had in are obviously people who already have a building.
Sure.
They're beyond the design stage, sadly, and they're actually asking about the sort of the retrofit side. So the next question we've got is, if I don't have any KNX in my building, how difficult would it be to install a system which allows for contactless control throughout the building for shared use spaces?
Yeah, it really depends on the type of building. KNX in itself has it has four, but three main medium types. It works over the KNX bus. It can work over an IP network, and it can also work over wireless. But wired is always the best solution. Being able to have, if you've got a large amount of devices, being able to put them all onto one cable, powered from the cable, communicating over the same cable, that's a really simple way to install it. But also, it's far more reliable because the system is kept separate from things like the network. So if something happens to the network, you've still got the system working on the wired bus. So, one option would be, one question is how hard is it to get a cable around? If you're able to get the KNX control cable around the different control points in the building, then you might be able to retrofit a KNX solution on top. In terms of doing something wireless, there's some great. We're starting to see more and more KNX products that are wireless, particularly around actuators. and there are some quite good room sensors, but it can be limiting, particularly when you start to scale up across a large commercial building. If you've got a lot of points that you need to, a lot of data points you need to be bringing in from the environmental side, and then a lot of control points, you really do want to look at a wired solution. So the answer would be, it depends on the building structure. If we can look at using a KNX wired system, being able to retrofit that, great. Obviously, there would be a fair bit of cost with that. I think one option is to break it down into smaller parts of the building. It might be just one floor where you really, you've got maybe shared office space. The top floors where you've got maybe more permanent space, you might not worry about. And then it's like, okay, well, if it's a suspended ceiling, okay, a couple of simple KNX detectors, which could, a single detector providing all the environmental information and also doing this more intelligent sensing of where someone is. You might put 3 or 4 across a large open space, and being able to, if you can get a KNX bus cable to them, great. And then that could integrate to the existing BMS, via, there's various gateways could be using, Modbus could be BACnet, it could be going via, it could even be going, linking through to DALI. There's all kinds of different gateways between KNX and existing BMS. So it could be you just say, well, let's get the sensing information into the existing control level for the lighting and the HVAC and integrate it that way, which might be a good kind of hybrid solution.
Okay. No, thank you. That's good. I think sort of taking that one step further really is somebody has asked the question, how easy is it to introduce KNX to integrate this contactless control with their current BMS, which is a single provider solution?
Yeah, there's 2 answers really. The technical answer is very easy. There's all kinds of gateways between any type of BMS and KNX, because pretty much any proprietary BMS system would talk BACnet at some level or have a gateway to BACnet. It might even be that proprietary system natively supports KNX, because ultimately anybody can speak the KNX language. You just need to implement the protocol. So that proprietary system might already have a native KNX connection via IP or maybe a wired connection, or you're going to use something like a BACnet gateway between the two. So technically very easy.
Okay.
Obviously there's programming costs and how do you, one thing that we see a lot, and it's where the impact of a proprietary system really starts to hurt, is where the system's been installed and commissioned by maybe the people who built the building, and then tenants have moved in, and you've come in at a facilities management level, and you're controlling the building, but you don't actually have any access to the original software, the original programming. And bringing in a company to fix that up can be quite a challenge. It might be an out-of-date proprietary system that's no longer even supported. Assuming it's something that you have access to either to recommission or you're still engaged with the original people who did the work, then saying, okay, well, we've got some new sensors that are coming from the KNX interface. We're giving a number of people in the room at any given time, or we're given direction of flow of people through the building, or we're counting as people are coming through the building. Feeding that information into the BMS, technically very easy. It's then what do you do with it? How do you program that and get that to work? But yeah, it shouldn't be too much of a challenge, particularly once you've got that cabling in and you've done that installation side of it. So yeah.
That's good. Cool. So we've got one here from a facilities manager, and he's basically saying, he's a facilities manager. His role has changed significantly over the last couple of years, as a lot of facilities managers' roles have. Do I need to have a lot of technical knowledge to be able to use a KNX system? And he's sort of tagged on the end of that, I haven't previously used KNX ever. So what's your thoughts for him?
It really, there's a couple of different layers within KNX. The commissioning tool is called ETS, ETS 5 at the moment. ETS 6 has actually just been launched by the KNX Association. That's a tool you use to link different things together, where you've got devices on the bus communicating. ETS is what you use to link them together. But that's not normally used in runtime, because once you've got the different data points linked together, it's what do you do with that information. And a lot of the time we'll see a server platform sitting above the KNX kind of bus-based system where you've got more centralized intelligence. Now, we talk a lot about KNX being decentralized, modular, lots of individual devices on the bus, all intelligent, communicating. And that's great, and that makes it really reliable. But it doesn't remove the need for a supervisory layer, and that's where you'll normally have some form of server or BMS server, or even sometimes a proprietary BMS solution sitting on top of the KNX system, bringing all this data together, analyzing it, managing it, making decisions with it, and then sending the information back onto the bus for control. So to answer the question, if you're looking to commission and change a KNX system, is it that complicated? Not really. If you've worked with other control systems, you'll quite quickly get used to the KNX programming environment. But more likely, you'll be looking at working at the layer above and working at that supervisory layer and working with some form of, server platform visualization and control. And then that becomes a bit more specialist. But that would be something you may have worked with before via a different BMS provider. It could be a proprietary system at that level. There are open source platforms as well. So the thing is with KNX is often perceived as being very, very complicated. And the reason for that is it can be really complicated. You can do amazingly complicated things with it. You can also do very simple things with it. And it's really what you're trying to achieve on the project. If it's a case of a button turning on a relay, it's very simple and you don't need much. Once you know how the KNX programming environment works, it's really simple to implement. That's different to, programming Heathrow Terminal 5 with all the lighting and all the control. Obviously, there's a different level there. But there's 90,000 integrators worldwide who have trained for the KNX programming platform, ETS. It's a standardized course. Yeah, it's not that complicated. The question would be, do you need to be doing the commissioning side of the system, or is it more just that runtime using it? And then you'll probably be working at a server level with something you may well be familiar with already.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. You mentioned training actually, and that's something that somebody's asked. How do I do KNX is the question. But I think by that they mean, what sort of training is involved? How do I do it?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of different. There's a lot of great online content. I've got a very short introduction to KNX video on YouTube, for example, which is a 25-minute run through of the KNX topology, and there's a couple of little programming videos there, which are great as a tester for, is this the thing I want to commit to? Is KNX right for me? So that's just on the Ivory Egg YouTube channel. There's a lot of other KNX intro stuff out there. Obviously I've put some stuff out there, but there is hundreds and hundreds of videos and information about KNX at an introductory level. Great to look into that and really understand, is KNX the right thing? The next step up is the basic course, which is a standardized course from the KNX Association. They deliver that via training centres worldwide. There's a couple in the UK. We arrange courses. There's some impartial ones as well, like CEDIA, for example, do a training course. That's a 4 or 5 day course. It's a fixed number of hours, but sometimes some people do longer days and do it in 4 days. And in that course, you'll cover KNX theory. How does the KNX system work? Even down to at the messages on the bus level. How does the topology work? How do I what installation stuff do I need to know about the system? Then the other half is practical. How do I use the software to program a KNX system? Now, with over 500 manufacturers and tens of thousands of devices, they're not going to teach you how to use what devices are used for, how to program a different device. That's where it comes to more manufacturer-specific training or working with a distributor. But the KNX basic course teaches you how do I use the KNX infrastructure and how do I use the KNX programming software to be able to commission systems. So those courses run regularly. Once you do that, you have KNX partner status, which is the 90,000 integrators worldwide. And they've all done the same level of training. Then goes on from there into there's more advanced training or more specialist training where it might be, for example, as a distributor, we run a heating course for how to commission KNX, how to use KNX for a residential heating application. Could be manufacturer-specific training, loads of webinars, loads of online courses out there. So start with some intro stuff, have a look around for some KNX introductory videos, and then looking to get that KNX basic course done as the first step on your KNX journey.
That's great, thank you. So is that information available on the KNX website?
Yep, so if you go to the KNX Brussels website, which is knx.org, you can see a list of all training partners and training courses that are being delivered around the world, but then you go through to the training provider to actually book the course and engage that way. And KNX UK can also help and point you in the right direction as well for anyone that's running the course in the UK.
That's great, thank you. So we've got a question here on the protocol, and John's asking, is the KNX protocol available on any open source repositories for manufacturers to port onto their own products?
Yes and no. The KNX standard itself is a publicly available specification. All you need to do, I mean, you can find it if you search for it, but the correct way to get it is to join my.knx.org, set yourself up an account there. You'll need to do that for training anywhere. Once you've signed up to my.knx.org, it's free, but once you've registered, you can download the full KNX specification. Now, if you want to work with that and implement that specification into your products, great, go for it. If you want to actually have your products recognized as a KNX device, then you need to go through you need to sign up to the KNX Association as a manufacturer. Then you'll need to submit that product for testing and approval by a KNX testing laboratory. And there's certain requirements you need to meet around documentation and in terms of the way the device communicates to the bus. Once you've done that testing step, your product becomes KNX certified and you can sell it as a KNX certified device. Of course, you could sell it without it being KNX certified, that's great. And it's that testing thing that's really important. Because of the type testing, it ensures that KNX devices from different manufacturers do actually work together. And if anyone's been in the controls industry for long enough, they'll all have bad experiences of where, yes, it's a standard, but it's not actually standardized. It's standard, but these two different products don't actually communicate. I'm not going to name anyone, but anyone who's been around will know some of the ones. And it's the key difference. KNX is a standardized communication layer, but it's also standardized at the application layer to ensure that the two different devices do communicate. And the only way we can guarantee that is by doing this type testing or testing through as manufacturers develop products. So, we would only ever recommend and deal with KNX certified products, because otherwise there's just too much risk. And you want to be, to say that we're installing a system that has been around for 30 years and is going to be around for another 30 years, that we have these claims of future-proofing and the reliability claims and the interoperability claims, a lot of that is based on the fact that we do this type of testing and the certification of devices. So it is really an important part of it and what makes KNX such a strong system.
Thank you, that's good. So I think we've got time for just one more. And this one is about the standard itself. So the question is this KNX standard governed by an independent panel and subject to public consultation and commenting on a not-for-profit basis, or is it a published protocol that's defined by a body that makes profit from the tools and licensing?
It's more the second one. The KNX Association, based in Brussels, is a for-profit organisation. They do make their most of the profit stream comes from the software used to commission it. But the KNX Association, they manage the protocol and do the development. For example, KNX Secure, which has been released in the last few years, which adds a whole layer of security to the KNX system to ensure that it can't just be you can't just break into it and kind of hack into the system. That happens through working groups, which manufacturers can sit on the board or sit in the working groups and help to develop the product. So at a organisation level, KNX is effectively it is for profit and it's managed by the association. However, the KNX standard is also written into standards organisation worldwide. It's an ISO IEC standard. It is a Senelec standard. It is it's approved as an Australian standard. It's a Chinese standard. It's even a ANSI standard in America. So when it becomes standardized at that level, it then the KNX Association are effectively managing that standardization that is standardized through recognized trade bodies worldwide. And when the Australian one was certified, well, it's not actually a standard. It's it's one level below. That was open for public consultation. It was a very long process. It's just, in a lot of places, that's already happened and taken place. So KNX is already in place as a standard, as an ISO standard, but also managed by the KNX Association. So it's almost a hybrid of those two scenarios that were described.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for your time.